Cole had been invisible for 2 years. He worked in the lowest levels of Orion 7, a deep space mining station floating in the cold darkness of the Helix Nebula. The station belonged to the Consortium, a group of 4 alien species who controlled this sector of space. They had allowed humans to join their operations 5 years ago, but allowing and accepting were very different things. Cole was a maintenance engineer. He fixed pipes, repaired broken systems, and kept the lower levels running. It was important work, but nobody treated it that way. The officers who ran the station walked past him like he was part of the wall. The traders ignored his greetings. The massive guards looked through him as if he did not exist. He had applied for promotion 6 times. Each time, his application was rejected without explanation. He had reported safety concerns about the lower levels 14 times. Each report was filed and forgotten. He had requested transfer to a different station twice. Both requests were. Cole was not the only human on Orion 7, but he was the only one assigned to the bottom levels. The other humans worked in the midsections, far enough from the alien officers to avoid daily humiliation, but close enough to feel like they mattered. Cole had been sent down here as punishment for asking too many questions during his first month on the station. That was 2 years ago. He had stopped asking questions. He had stopped expecting anything to change. He simply did his work, learned every system in the lower levels, and waited for his contract to end. The attack came on a Tuesday. Cole was repairing a water recycling unit when the first explosion shook the station. The lights flickered. Alarms began screaming. A voice came over the communication system, speaking in the language first, then in broken English. Raiders, all personnel evacuate to designated safe zones. Cole dropped his tools and ran toward the nearest evacuation point. The corridors were filling with workers from a dozen different species, all rushing in the same direction. They were feared throughout this sector. They were predators who raided stations and ships for resources and slaves. They showed no mercy and took no prisoners except those they could sell. Cole reached the evacuation corridor and found a massive door sealed shut. A crowd of workers had gathered in front of it, pounding on the metal and screaming. A female was trying to override the lock, but nothing was working. The door had been sealed from the other side. Cole pushed through the crowd and looked at the control panel. The override codes had been changed. Someone on the upper levels had deliberately locked this door, trapping everyone in the lower sections. He tried his maintenance codes. Access. He tried the emergency protocols he had memorized during training. Access. He tried everything he knew and nothing worked. The explosions were getting closer. A young worker grabbed Cole's shoulder and spun him around. His translator implant made the alien's words understandable. "Why is the door sealed? They cannot leave us here." Cole looked at the terrified faces around him. 47 workers, 12 different species, all of them trapped because someone had decided they were not worth saving. "We need to find another way out," Cole said. "Follow me." He led them through the maintenance tunnels he knew so well. These passages connected every section of the lower levels, but they were too small and too complicated for the evacuation planners to consider. Cole had walked these tunnels 1,000 times. He knew every turn, every junction, every hidden corner. They were halfway to the secondary cargo bay when they found them. The raiders came from both directions at once, their dark armor reflecting the emergency lights. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms and faces that seemed designed for nightmares. They carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The workers scattered. Some ran, some froze, some tried to fight with their bare hands. Cole saw a soldier grab the young who had spoken to him. The alien worker struggled, but was stronger. A second raised its weapon and fired at a group of fleeing. They fell and did not get up. Cole ran. He was not proud of it. He would never be proud of it. But in that moment, with death all around him, his body chose survival. He dove into a maintenance hatch and crawled through a pipe barely wide enough for his shoulders. Behind him, he heard screams and weapons fire and the horrible sounds of people dying. He crawled until he could not hear anything anymore. Then he kept crawling. He emerged in a storage room deep in the station's foundation. The room was cold and dark and filled with forgotten equipment. Cole collapsed against the wall and tried to breathe. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break his ribs. Tears ran down his face, and he did not try to stop them. He stayed in that room for hours, listening to the distant sounds of the securing the lower levels. He heard them moving through corridors, heard their strange language echoing through the station's bones. He heard captured workers being herded together, heard the cries of those being taken away. And he heard nothing from the upper levels, no rescue teams, no security forces, no one coming to help. When the silence finally came, Cole accessed a maintenance terminal and tried to contact the upper sections. The communication channels were open. He could hear the consortium officers talking to each other. They had repelled from the upper levels. They were safe. They were already planning how to retake the station. And they knew about the lower levels. They knew people were trapped down here. They had decided to wait. Cole searched the communication logs and found what he was looking for, a security recording from the moment the attack began. He saw the security chief, standing at the main control console. He saw the evacuation alerts go out. He saw the officers on the upper levels rushing toward their safe zones. And he saw and look at the status display showing 47 workers in the lower sections. He saw and consider for exactly 3 seconds. Then he saw and enter the command that sealed the doors. The recording showed everything, and had not forgotten about them. He had not made a mistake. He had looked at the workers in the lower levels and decided they were acceptable losses. Cole saved the recording to his personal device. Then he sat in the darkness and made a decision. He was not going to die in these tunnels. He was going to survive. He was going to escape. And when he did, and would answer for what he had done, every single person who had left them to die would answer. Cole stood up and began walking deeper into the station. He knew these tunnels better than anyone. He had supplies hidden in maintenance rooms throughout the lower levels. He had access codes that they would never find. They had ignored him for 2 years. They had forgotten he existed. They had left him in the dark to die. They were about to learn that had been a terrible mistake. 3 months changed Cole into something else entirely. He lived in the shadows now. The maintenance tunnels had become his home, his hunting ground, his kingdom. He knew every pipe, every wire, every hidden passage in the lower levels. They had taken control of these sections, using them as a holding area for captured slaves before transport. They walked the corridors like they owned them. They did not know Cole was watching. He had learned their patterns in the first week. The patrol routes never changed. They passed the same points at the same times every day. They checked the same rooms in the same order. They were predators, but they were lazy predators. They did not expect resistance from their prey. Cole gave them resistance. The first soldier disappeared on day 12. He was patrolling alone through a secondary corridor when the lights went out. When they came back on, he was gone. His equipment was found 3 days later in a recycling processor. His body was never found. The second soldier disappeared on day 15, then another on day 18, then 2 more on day 23. The commander was named Al. He was larger than the others, with scars covering his face and arms. He had raided dozens of stations throughout this sector. He had never lost soldiers like this. He ordered double patrols. Cole adapted. He used the station's environmental systems to create distractions. A sudden drop in temperature here, a strange noise there. They would investigate, splitting their forces, and another soldier would vanish. Al ordered his soldiers to stay in groups of 4 or more. Cole adapted again. He rerouted power to specific sections, causing gravity fluctuations that left entire patrols floating helplessly in midair. He adjusted the atmospheric processors to release mild toxins that made them slow and confused. He opened and closed doors at random, trapping soldiers in corridors with no escape. They began calling him the Ghost. They whispered about him in their barracks. They refused to patrol certain sections alone. Soldiers who had laughed at the idea of a haunted station now flinched at every shadow, every unexpected sound. Cole watched them from the darkness and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The consortium had retaken the upper levels a month after the attack. Their security forces had driven back the established defensive positions and restored basic operations, but they made no attempt to clear the lower sections. They sealed the connecting passages and pretended the problem did not exist. Cole monitored their communications. He heard them discussing the situation. The lower levels were too dangerous, they said. They were too entrenched. A military operation would be too costly. They never mentioned the survivors. They never asked if anyone was still alive down here. Cole was not the only one who had escaped. He discovered this on day 37 when he found fresh footprints in a maintenance tunnel he rarely used. He followed them carefully, expecting a trap, and found something else instead. A storage room converted into a hiding place. 6 beings huddled together in the darkness, surviving on stolen rations and recycled water. 2. One elderly, 2 young, and a human female he did not recognize. They nearly killed him when he appeared. The larger swung a metal pipe at his head, and only Cole's reflexes saved him from a broken skull. He raised his hands and spoke quickly, explaining who he was and what he had been doing. The human woman stared at him with wide eyes. "You are the ghost," she said. "We thought you were a machine, some kind of automated defense system." Cole shook his head, "Just a maintenance engineer." Her name was. She had worked in the communication center before the attack. She had technical skills that Cole needed, knowledge of systems he did not fully understand. Over the following weeks, she became his partner in the war against the. Together, they coordinated their attacks more effectively. Could access communication channels Cole could not reach. She could track movements through the station's sensor grid. She could warn him when patrols changed their routes or reinforcements arrived. The other survivors joined their efforts in smaller ways. The elderly, a scholar named, provided information about biology and behavior. They knew the station's layout from their trading routes. They were strong enough to move heavy equipment and set physical traps. They became a team, not soldiers but survivors who refused to be victims. Al grew desperate. He had lost nearly 30 soldiers to the Ghost. His superiors in the fleet were demanding explanations. His remaining soldiers were terrified to leave their barracks. He sent a message to the consortium. He proposed a deal. They would withdraw from the lower levels in exchange for safe passage off the station. The consortium considered the offer for 2 days before rejecting it. They did not want to appear weak. Cole intercepted both messages. He learned that neither side cared about the survivors trapped between them. The consortium saw the lower levels as a problem to be contained. They saw them as territory to be held. Neither saw the people still hiding in the darkness. This made Cole angry in a way he had not felt before. It was one thing to be abandoned in the chaos of an attack. It was another to be forgotten deliberately, treated as acceptable losses in a negotiation. He began planning something bigger. The consortium sent a team to investigate the ghost phenomenon. They wanted to understand what was killing soldiers. They wanted to weaponize it if possible. Cole watched from the shadows as the team entered the lower levels. 5 security officers and 2 scientists, all wearing combat armor and carrying advanced weapons. They moved carefully, professionally, checking every corner and doorway. Leading them was N. Cole felt his hands clench into fists. He had not forgotten the recording. He had not forgotten watching and seal the doors. He had watched that recording 100 times in the darkness, memorizing every detail of the moment his life had been deemed worthless. And was explaining something to the scientists. Cole could not hear the words, but he could see the body language. Confident, dismissive. The security chief was treating this as a routine inspection, not a search and rescue mission. Of course he was, and did not believe anyone had survived. He had condemned them to death and assumed death had claimed them. Cole could have killed him then. A quick adjustment to the corridor's systems would have done it. A gravity surge or an atmospheric seal or a power overload, and would never have known what hit him. But Cole did not want it to be quick. He wanted him to know who was coming for him. He wanted the security chief to feel the same fear the trapped workers had felt when those doors sealed shut. He let the team complete their investigation. He let them collect their samples and take their readings. He let them return to the upper levels with their data and their theories. Then he sent a message. It was simple, just a copy of the recording from the night of the attack, with a single line of text attached. "I remember." Cole did not know how and reacted when he received the message. He did not need to know. What mattered was that the hunt had officially begun. The ghost was no longer just haunting the station had become divided into 3 parts. They controlled the central sections and the hangar bays. They had brought in more soldiers after losing so many to the ghost, but their morale was broken. They patrolled in large groups now, weapons always ready, jumping at every shadow. The consortium controlled the upper levels. Their officers lived in comfort behind sealed doors and armed guards, managing the crisis through reports and meetings. They had written off the lower sections as lost territory, acceptable damage in the larger conflict. And Cole controlled the depths. His group of survivors had grown to 12. Word spread through the maintenance tunnels that the ghost was actually a man, a human who had refused to die. Other survivors found their way to him, guided by whispered directions and hidden markers. They came from different species and different backgrounds, but they all shared one thing. They had been abandoned and they had survived. Cole sat with them in their hidden refuge, a converted storage bay deep in the station's foundation. The lights were dim, the air was cold, but they were alive and they were together. The elderly scholar watched Cole clean a weapon taken from a dead soldier. The human's movements were precise and methodical. There was no wasted motion. "I have been studying," you said. His translator made his voice sound musical, almost gentle. "I hope you do not mind." Cole did not look up. "And what have you learned?" "Your species is young. They have been traveling between stars for 30,000 years. Humans have been doing it for less than 300. We thought you were primitives, children stumbling into a galaxy of adults." Cole slotted the weapon's power cell back into place. "Is there a point to this?" Leaned forward. "The point is that we were wrong. Your species evolved on a planet that should have killed you. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, predators everywhere, diseases that would destroy most galactic species. You should have died 1,000,000 times over. But we did not. No, you adapted, you endured, you became something that survives no matter what the universe throws at you." Paused. "I have watched you for 3 months. You have been living in conditions that would break most beings. No proper food, no proper rest, constant danger, and you are not just surviving, you are thriving." Cole finally looked up. His eyes were calm and cold. "What is your point?" The met his gaze without flinching. "My point is that I made a terrible mistake." He looked at a human and saw something small and weak and forgettable. He did not see what was underneath. He did not understand what happens when you push a human into a corner and leave them there. Cole smiled. It was not a warm smile. No, he did not. Was sitting nearby, working on a communication device she had salvaged from a destroyed patrol. She had heard the conversation but had not interrupted. Now she spoke. "Cole has a list." The other survivors looked at her, then at Cole, raised an eyebrow. "A list of what?" Cole set down the weapon. "A list of 7 names. The people who decided to leave us down here to die. The ones who sealed the doors and blocked the communications and redirected the escape pods. The ones who knew we were trapped and chose to save themselves." The room was silent. A young name spoke carefully. "What are you going to do with this list?" "I am going to work through it, one name at a time." Studied Cole's face. "You mean you are going to kill them?" "Maybe," Cole's voice was flat. "Or maybe I am going to give them a choice. Confess to what they did, or I will make sure everyone knows anyway. Some of them might choose confession. Some might choose silence." "And those who choose silence?" Cole did not answer. He did not need to. They made their move 3 days later. Al had received reinforcements from the fleet. Fresh soldiers, eager to hunt the ghost that had humiliated their brothers. He organized them into a massive sweep of the lower levels, hundreds of warriors moving through every corridor and tunnel. Cole had been expecting this. He had been preparing for weeks. The first wave of entered the southern section and found every door sealed behind them. Before they could react, the lights went out. Emergency power came on, but it was different. The corridor was bathed in red light that flickered and pulsed in irregular patterns. They found it disorienting. Humans found it easy to navigate. Cole's survivors attacked from above and below. They used the maintenance hatches to appear behind patrols, strike quickly, and disappear. They used the station's communication system to broadcast confusing orders, sending units in wrong directions. They used environmental controls to create pockets of freezing cold and burning heat. The sweep became a disaster. Soldiers found themselves isolated and surrounded. Their communications were jammed. Their commanders could not coordinate. Every time they thought they had cornered the ghost, he was somewhere else, striking from a direction they had not expected. By the end of the day, Al had lost nearly a third of his remaining forces. The survivors had captured weapons, ammunition, and supplies. More importantly, they had proven that the lower levels were not empty prey waiting to be collected. Cole stood over the body of an officer he had killed personally. The alien had been leading a squad that almost found their hidden refuge. Cole had ambushed him in a maintenance junction, killed him silently, and dragged the body into the darkness. Found him there an hour later. She looked at the blood on his hands and did not say anything. Cole spoke first. They are sending for more reinforcements. The fleet is dispatching another wave. She nodded. I intercepted the transmission. They will be here in 6 days. He wiped his hands on his uniform. The consortium fleet is coming too. They want to retake the station before they can reinforce it. Hesitated. Cole, when the consortium arrives, what are you going to do? He looked at her. His eyes were the same cold calm they had been for months. The consortium is not coming to rescue us. They are coming to reclaim their property. If we are still here when they arrive, they will either arrest us or ignore us again. So what do we do? Cole turned and began walking back toward their refuge. We use the chaos. They and the consortium are going to fight each other for control of this station. While they are distracted, I am going to start working on my list. Followed him. She had more questions, but she kept them to herself. She had seen what Cole had become over the past months. She understood what drove him. The galaxy had taught humans that they were small and weak and forgettable. It had ignored them and dismissed them and left them to die. It was about to learn just how badly it had misjudged them. The consortium fleet arrived on a Thursday. 12 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately engaged the reinforcement vessels. The battle in space was brief and violent. The consortium had more ships and better weapons. Within hours, the fleet was scattered, and transport vessels were launching toward the station. Cole watched the battle through a sensor feed had tapped into. The lights of weapons fire sparkled against the darkness of space. Ships exploded in silent flashes. Escape pods drifted between the wreckage. The consortium is winning, said. They will have full control of the station within a day. Cole nodded. Good, that means we'll feel safe. He left the observation room and made his way through the maintenance tunnels toward the upper levels. The passages here were narrower and less familiar. He had spent months mapping them, finding routes that bypassed security checkpoints and sealed doors. Now he was ready to use them. The first name on his list was Naden. It was Supervisor, a mid-level administrator who had controlled the lower-level communication systems. During the attack, she had received distress calls from trapped workers. She had logged those calls, acknowledged them, and then disabled the relay that would have forwarded them to the evacuation coordinators. 47 people had begged for help, had heard every word and done nothing. Cole found her in her quarters in the administrative section. She lived alone in a small but comfortable room, surrounded by personal decorations and a collection of alien art. She was sleeping when he arrived. He woke her by sitting on the edge of her bed and waiting. Waza, with the delicate features and large eyes common to her species. When she opened those eyes and saw Cole sitting beside her, she screamed, or tried to. Cole had already placed his hand over her mouth. I am going to remove my hand, he said quietly. If you scream, I will leave and send a copy of your communication logs to every news outlet in the sector. Your career will be destroyed, and your people will know exactly what you did. Nod if you understand. She nodded frantically. Cole removed his hand and leaned back, stared at him with the wide-eyed terror of prey caught by a predator it had never seen coming. You are the ghost, she whispered. I am Cole. I was a maintenance engineer in the lower levels. You ignored my distress call on the night of the attack. I did not know. They told us to prioritize upper-level communications. I was following orders. Cole shook his head. I have the logs. You received 37 calls from the lower sections. You responded to 12 of them with automated acknowledgments. You manually disabled the relay that would have alerted the evacuation coordinators. Those were not orders. Those were choices. Began to cry. What do you want? Money, protection? I can get you anything. The consortium is taking control of the station. I have influence. Cole watched her tears without sympathy. I want you to confess. Publicly. Tell everyone what you did that night. Explain why you chose to let people die instead of doing your job. They will arrest me. My career will be over. Yes. She stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of mercy. She found none. And if I refuse? Then I release the evidence myself, and then I come back. He did not explain what would happen when he came back. He did not need to, understood perfectly. She confessed the next morning. Her statement was broadcast throughout the station, a tearful admission of guilt that shocked the consortium leadership. She was arrested within hours, charged with negligent homicide and dereliction of duty. Cole watched the broadcast from his refuge in the lower levels. His survivors watched with him. None of them spoke. The second name on his list was Transport Coordinator. He was a large and powerful species that prided themselves on their honor and strength, had been responsible for escape pod deployment during the attack. He had diverted pods away from the lower sections and toward the upper-level officers, leaving the workers below without any means of evacuation. Cole gave him the same choice he had given: confess or face exposure. Refused. He called Cole a terrorist and a murderer. He threatened to have him hunted down and executed. Cole released the evidence: transport logs, communication records, and testimony from other operators who had witnessed decisions. The information spread through the station like fire through dry grass. Was found dead the next morning. The official report called it suicide, but everyone knew the truth. His own people had turned on him. The valued honor above almost everything else. They could not tolerate a member of their species who had abandoned others to save himself. Cole felt nothing when he heard the news. He had not killed. He had simply made sure the truth was known. What happened after that was not his responsibility. And increased his personal security after his confession. He moved into a fortified section of the command level, surrounded by armed guards at all times. He requested transfer off the station, but his superiors they needed him to manage the transition of power. He knew Cole was coming for him. He just did not know when or how. The consortium consolidated their control over the station quickly. Within a week, they had cleared the from all but a few isolated pockets. They established new security protocols, installed new leadership, and began the process of returning to normal operations. They also tried to negotiate with Cole. Prelate, the senior consortium official now running the station, sent a message through channels she knew Cole was monitoring. She offered him amnesty, full pardon for all actions taken during the crisis, a position in the new security force, compensation for his suffering. Cole sent back a two-word reply: 7 names. Did not understand at first. Her intelligence officers explained it to her. The ghost had a list. He was working through it systematically. 2 names were already crossed off. 5 remained. And was one of them. Considered her options. She could try to protect him, but that would mean fighting a war against someone who knew the station better than anyone alive. She could try to capture Cole, but he had evaded every attempt so far. She could try to kill him, but her assassins never came back. Or she could let events take their course. She chose the last option. Officially, she maintained full support for N and the other officers on the list. Unofficially, she reduced their security details and made sure Cole's evidence against them reached the right people. Politics, she told herself. Sometimes you had to sacrifice pieces to win the game. Cole worked through his list over the following weeks. Some confessed, some ran, some tried to fight. The results were always the same. The truth came out and consequences followed. By the time he reached the 5th name, the entire station knew about the list. Workers whispered about it in the corridors. Officers looked over their shoulders constantly, wondering if they might have done something to earn a place on it. And stopped sleeping. He stopped eating properly. He jumped at every sound and trusted no one. His guards were loyal, but loyalty meant nothing against a ghost who could appear anywhere. He knew his time was running out. He just did not know how little of it remained. Cole watched him from the shadows, patient and cold. The hunt was almost over. Only 2 names remained. And was at the top. The final battle for Orion 7 began at dawn. Al had gathered his remaining forces for one last assault. The commander had nothing left to lose. His fleet was destroyed. His soldiers were terrified. His reputation was ruined. He would either retake the station and salvage something from this disaster, or he would die trying. He chose to attack the lower levels first. He wanted to kill the ghost before moving against the consortium positions above. Cole was ready. The lower sections had become a fortress over the past months. Every corridor was trapped. Every junction was monitored. Every room held a surprise for unwelcome visitors. Cole's survivor group had grown to over 30, armed with weapons taken from dead and supplied with equipment salvaged from the station's reserves. They were not soldiers. They were mechanics and traders and scholars and workers, but they had been forged by months of survival into something harder than they had been before. Al led his personal guard into the depths. He was done sending others to die for him. If the ghost was real, he would face it himself. Cole met him in the main engineering bay. The room was vast and dark, filled with massive generators and processing equipment. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the floor. The hum of machinery filled the air with constant noise. Al saw Cole standing alone in the center of the room. The human looked small compared to the warriors surrounding him. He was wearing maintenance coveralls stained with oil and blood. He held a captured rifle in his hands. "You are the ghost," Al said. His translator made his voice deep and harsh. "I expected something more impressive." Cole shrugged. "I get that a lot." Al raised his weapon. "You killed my soldiers. You humiliated my forces. You made my warriors afraid of shadows. You invaded this station. You killed innocent workers. You took slaves." The commander laughed. "That is what we do. We are predators. You are prey." Cole smiled. The expression did not reach his eyes. "Is that what you think?" Al fired. The shot should have killed Cole instantly. But Cole was not standing where Al thought he was. The human had moved the moment the commander raised his weapon, sliding sideways with a speed that should have been impossible. He fired back as he moved, his shots precise and controlled. The first shot took a guard in the throat. The second and third killed two more. Then the lights went out. Cole had been fighting in darkness for months. He knew how to move without seeing. He knew how to listen for the sounds of enemies stumbling around him. He knew how to kill in the black. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. When the lights came back on, Al was alone. His guards lay dead around him. His weapon had been knocked from his hands. Cole stood before him, rifle pointed at the commander's head. "I am not prey," Cole said quietly. "Neither were the workers you took. Neither were the people you killed." Al stared at him with something Cole had never seen in him before: fear. "What are you?" Cole pulled the trigger. The battle in the lower levels was over. Cole's survivors had held every position, repelled every assault, and captured every who surrendered. The few raiders who escaped fled toward the upper levels, where consortium security forces finished them off. Prelate declared victory that evening. She praised the security forces and promised a return to normal operations. She did not mention the survivors who had actually defeated the. Cole had expected nothing different. He made his way to the upper levels through the passages he knew so well. He had 2 names left on his list. After tonight, he would have one. The 6th name was a communications officer who had jammed distress signals during the attack. Cole found him trying to evacuate on a transport shuttle. He never made it to the ship. Now only one remained. The security chief had barricaded himself in his quarters. He had 4 guards outside his door and 2 more inside. He had weapons and supplies for a week-long siege. He thought he was safe. Cole came through the ventilation system and was sitting at his desk when Cole dropped from the ceiling behind him. The security chief spun around, reaching for a weapon, but Cole was faster. He knocked the gun away and pressed it against the wall. The guards outside heard the commotion and tried to enter. The door was sealed. They pounded on it and shouted threats, but they could not get through. Cole looked into the eyes of the man who had condemned him to death. "I remember the recording," Cole said. "You looked at the status display showing 47 workers trapped in the lower levels. You considered for exactly 3 seconds. Then you sealed the doors." And was trembling. It was a tactical decision. They were overwhelming the lower sections. If I had opened the evacuation routes, they would have reached the upper levels. You did not even try. You did not warn us. You did not give us a chance. We did not have time. You had 3 seconds. Cole's voice was cold. That was enough time to save us. You chose not to. "What do you want?" And whispered, "Confession. I will confess. I will tell everyone what I did." Cole shook his head. "The others got that choice. Confess or face consequences, but you are different. You made the decision. You gave the order. You looked at us and decided we were worthless. Then kill me. Get it over with." Cole released him and stumbled back confused. "I am not going to kill you," Cole said. "I am going to give you exactly what you gave us. Nothing." He stepped back toward the ventilation shaft. The guards were still pounding on the door. "The evidence of what you did is already spreading through the station. Every news outlet in the sector has copies. The consortium cannot protect you anymore. Your own people will deal with you." And stared at him. "You are just going to leave." Cole paused at the shaft entrance. When you sealed those doors, you did not think about us at all. We were nothing to you, forgettable, disposable. He smiled, and for a moment, and saw the ghost that had haunted the lower levels for months. Now you know how it feels. Then he was gone. 1 year later, Cole stood in the cockpit of a small transport ship, watching the stars drift past the viewport. The news broadcast playing in the background described ongoing reforms in consortium space, new regulations for emergency procedures, new protections for workers, new accountability for officers who abandoned their duties. The Orion 7 revelations, they called it, the scandal that had changed everything. His voice came from the pilot's seat. Where are we going next? Cole turned off the broadcast. There is another station in the outer territories. I heard some things about how they treat their workers. Nodded, she did not need more explanation. The galaxy was vast and old. It had seen countless species rise and fall. It had watched civilizations grow and die. It had learned over millions of years that strength came from size and age and technology. But the galaxy had never met anything quite like humans before. They were small and young and easily overlooked. They died easily and lived briefly, and seemed so fragile compared to the ancient species around them. Yet they survived, they adapted, they refused to disappear quietly into the darkness. And when you pushed them too far, when you abandoned them and forgot them and left them to die, they came back. They always came back. Cole had been invisible once. He had been forgotten and dismissed and left behind. Now the galaxy would remember him. Now they would all remember.